Thank you very, very much. And thanks to everyone for attending the KSI Second Malaysia Digital Economy Summit. So as introduced, I'm Georg Schmil, the moderator of the next session. I will keep my intro very, very brief. We're talking about Quo Vadis of the digital transformation, which direction it is taken. Where does one begin with a new strategy is one of the questions we will try to answer. Why is the whole digital transformation important, or I would say essential for the business? And what does a successful business transformation look like? I mean, I'm honored to be the moderator. I've been involved in leading of three unicorns in my life so far in the real estate and automotive space, and many other publicly listed companies. And I hope there will be more. And I do believe that with such a panel, we can at least have a very, very good go in answering this question. We will hear first from Datuk Dr. Suhana about the Malaysian perspective and the regional perspective in the question of Quo Vadis digital transformation. And then I hand over to Tan-Sri Raina Althoff, who will talk more about the global perspective, because we can't, digitalization makes the whole world far more global. And then we go to Mr. Sean, and we talk about the North Star of the government digitalization. And at the end, we have three very, very esteemed speakers, Dr. Charlene from TM, Dr. Henry from Macro Kiosk, and Ms. Rafiza from Cradle Fund, who will give us live examples either from their companies or from the outside. So without further ado, I've got the great honor and pleasure to hand over to Datuk Dr. Suhana. Dr. Datuk Suhana started her career as a diplomatic and administrative officer, and is now the director of the K Economy Division and the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister's Office. And she has had various roles in policy planning, developing or project management related to poverty eradication, equity ownership, social development, international cooperation, and digitalization. She has a PhD in economics from the Victoria University in Melbourne, Australia, and a master's degree from the Hiroshima University in Japan. And I hand over the floor now to Datuk Dr. Suhana to enlighten us about the Malaysian regional perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Shimel, for the introduction. Esteemed panels and participants of the second Malaysia Digital Economy Summit, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. First of all, thank you to KSI for the invitation to you to be part of the summit. It's great to be here today to share Malaysia's aspiration to advance digitalization and transform into a digitally driven, high-income nation and a regional leader in digital economy. I think earlier this morning, the Honorable Minister, Datuk Wei, as well as Mr. Fabian, had also highlighted few key components of the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint and the 4R policy. So basically, I will just highlight the aspirations behind this My Digital Agenda, and to also highlight on maybe some of the key success story that we hope to achieve by the year 2030. In realizing the importance of the digital economy, as well as changes in global trends, in which the world economic growth is increasingly driven by digitalization, the Malaysian government, as everybody are quite aware, had launched the My Digital Agenda and the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint on 19 February this year, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution policy on 1st July. I think since then, lots have happened. There's quite a lot of buzz on digitalization. People are starting to get on board. This is kind of progress, I think, compared with when we started, when most of the question is that where are we ready, and I know quite a lot of basic questions, but when we go deeper, then there's already a lot of things already in place. So basically these two guiding documents provides the policy direction, strategies, and initiatives toward achieving the vision for Malaysia to become the regional leader in digital economy and achieve inclusive, responsible, and sustainable socio-economic development. In the blueprint, I think one of the important elements is that we define the digital economy, in which it is as economic and social activities that involve the production and use of digital technologies by individuals, businesses, and government, while the 4R entails the intensification of digital advancement across digital, physical, and biological domains. As digitalization intensifies, which will enable more sophisticated technology applications, innovations, and the emergence of new business models across all sectors, the 4R accelerates the growth of the digital economy. As such, the development of digital economy is an outcome of the 4R when digital technologies are adopted widely. All these two documents are aligned with the 12th Malaysia Plan, the shared prosperity vision, and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. This is to ensure a more structured and coordinated efforts towards a common goal and in attaining the set vision. But today I will, in line with our topic, I will mostly focus on the blueprint. Okay, next, basically the blueprint is based on three guiding principles. Firstly, I think when we kind of in the formulation of the blueprint, it is important that it is inclusive, inclusivity to ensure nobody is left behind as a result of digitalization. Second is on ethics to ensure that data and digital tools are used in an ethical manner. And third, trust to ensure the growth of the digital economy without compromising privacy and cybersecurity. You can see that the blueprint has three objectives. Firstly, to encourage industry players to become creators, users, and adopters of innovative business models under the digital economy. Secondly, to harness human capital that is able to thrive in the digital economy. I think the previous session had talked about this. And thirdly, to nurture an integrated ecosystem that allows society to adopt digital economy. The blueprint framework comprises 6 trusts, 22 strategies, and 48 national initiatives and 28 sectoral initiatives. I think earlier Fabian had also highlighted on the 6 trusts. And the implementation of the blueprint is for 10 years from 2021 to 2030, and it's divided into 3 phases. The first phase from 2021 to 2022 will involve in terms of accelerating adoption towards strengthening the digital foundation. The second phase is from 2023 to 2025, in which will lead to an inclusive digital transformation. This is where we hope that lots of transformation can take place. And in the third phase, from 2026 to 2030, we aim to become a regional producer of digital products and solutions. With the blueprint in place, we target to achieve an inclusive, responsible, and sustainable social development with socio-environmental well-being for business growth in all sectors and fit for future government. Through the whole of nation approach, enhancing the people, private and public partnership, in terms of the government will play a key role in providing the support, and the private sector will lead the growth in the economy. I think that is all the while that's the government policy that we will always provide the support, and the private sector will be the engine of that will drive the growth in the economy, in the industry. The success of this blueprint will provide us with an agile and data-driven government, seamless and extensive digital connectivity, secured and trusted digital environment, innovative digital economic growth, fit for purpose digital talent, and digitally responsible and inclusive society. This ecosystem, through the discussion, this is among the key challenges that the Malaysia face, and I think this is why we picked these 6 key for outcome for the blueprint. Next, so what will success portray? In terms of opportunities, the digital economy will provide nations with the opportunity for additional income, provide new skills, training, and opportunities to grow in the digital environment. It also opens up opportunities for citizens from all walks of life to learn new digital skills help businesses improve their customer buying experience, improve business efficiency, explore new markets, and potentially reduce operating costs. Some of the opportunities include for the rakyat, we have the new job opportunities. I think they also highlighted just now on data scientists or network specialists and all that. And we also have new business models that will also create opportunities for people to participate as gig workers. For businesses, possible there will be new revenue streams in terms of physical products and services. And now we're going towards more digital, and we have more opportunities to integrate between economic sectors, larger market catchment for commercial activities, online businesses to expand market reach domestically and globally. I think for our blueprint, we did aim to become a regional player. I think we had identified, among others, is the cybersecurity and also solutions as a solution provider. But I think there are also other industry that we know we can Malaysia can champion in. And also, and for the government, I think it's basically to improve our public service delivery. As I mentioned earlier, we will need to provide the support for the industry to grow, and we need to also have the approach to increase the scope and quality, as well as to also enhance the e-government portals towards providing more efficiency and such as application for licenses, tax filings, and procurement processes. So basically, there are quite a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration, but the government had also kind of come up with a lot of roadmaps to achieve this the vision as we said in the blueprint. As for the targets, among our key targets, including creating 500 new jobs, I think Datuk had touched on that, and positioning Malaysia as a regional leader in attracting global companies to invest in the country. As for the rakyat, there will be also 100% of households have access to internet connection, all students to have access to online learning. For the businesses, we have reviewed revised this contribution of to GDP. In the 12th Malaysia Plan is 25.5%, instead of when we start with the blueprint is 22.6% of digital economy to Malaysia GDP. About 875,000 MSMEs to adopt e-commerce. We attract 2 unicorns, in which we already have one. About 70 billion investment in digitalization, and increase the number of startups to 5,000. As for the governments, I mean the target is for the 100% civil servants to possess digital literacy. We need to define what in what aspects. I think there's quite a lot of room in terms of I mean for everybody, and also to create the subject matter experts in the government, all agencies and ministries to provide cashless payment option. 80% end-to-end online government services will be integrated by 2025, and 80% usage of cloud storage across the government. Basically, that sums up the key elements of the My Digital Agenda and the Digital Economy Blueprint, which provides the direction for digital economic transformation. Like I think everybody, I mean, as I think that we also mentioned earlier, it's always that we can come up with a good blueprint or good policy, but it's always the implementation. And I think this is a big agenda in which the government cannot work alone. I think the support need to come from the industry. Everybody have to be on board, because nowadays they say it's not a kind of an option for us to go digital, but it is a necessity. And we don't want to be left behind, because as the world gets more competitive, we need to bring everybody on board this agenda. But in the digital environment, I think that everything is agile, and then that also includes in terms of strategies and initiatives that we can always kind of tweak things into getting in our efforts to reach our vision. There are certain things that we need to also refine along the way, and then they make such adjustments, because of the digital ecosystem is very dynamic. I think with that, I just kind of end up my brief presentation. I think I hand it back to Mr. Shmel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Datuk Dr. Suhana, for the very interesting presentation we heard earlier. It's very important to have a plan in place, not to start, but to have really a plan in place. And you have demonstrated that there's a very comprehensive plan in place, which includes, among other things, education, which is fundamentally important, the online education. So without further ado, I hand over to Tanshri Rainer Althoff, who is who doesn't need too much introduction. I mean, he's a non-executive director of Top Glove and has a multitude of roles. And due to having more than 50 years of experience in the field of electric engineering, electronics, and technology, mobile internet, factory automation, etc. I think as president and CEO of Siemens in Malaysia for more than 11 years, and also as the spokesperson, as a board member of Siemens for all operations, he has really a very distinguished career and experience, which he will share today when he shares his global perspective on how to do the business. So over to you, Tanshri Rainer. All the best.
Thank you, George, and thank you to Tansi Michael Yeo for the invitation today. I feel very good today because, can you hear me? Because I'm also ticket holder of Malaysia 4IR initiative and journey. So we have all bought a ticket, all the participants, hundreds of participants, all of you panelists and speakers. So I feel very good because once we work as a team, we can really achieve the final destination of Malaysia being a digital economy in the year 2030. I'm very positive. So of course, we need to have a milestone plan. We need to have an understanding how to achieve that big goal and to make other people in other countries, other economies, secondhand. So you see this opening picture is already known to you, but I want to make a comment on it. We want to do something to make our customers and potential customers our best friends. Emphasis on potential customers, because that is our growth potential anywhere in the world. Best friends forever. And then you see a robot hand and a human hand. That is my understanding. The human hand has always to be the upper hand. Never let the robots go by themselves. So now, big picture. The digital transformation story is already quite old. It started in the late 90s. Achievements were done in total integrated manufacturing. We started the Industry 4.0 story in 2011, and many milestones upwards characterized a very successful story all around the globe. Once the story started in Germany, SAP for the ERP system joined, augmented reality, AI joined, industry, IoT joined, logistic 4.0, recently 5G, and so on. And the dominant figure, the dominant driver of the whole thing is customer experience and business experience. So at the end, we all want to run a data management show to the success of our companies and our economy. Strategic levers are quality, close to 100%, time to market, half time to market, profitability, much better, and efficiency all over the place. That is my understanding. And for the practitioners of this story, it is very important that it's a data management story. That means the entry point of Industry 4.0 is paperless documentation. We cannot use any paper for data touching, for data management. So paperless all over the place. And the next part is open interface data communication. There are various positions in the market and products and solutions, but the best of all is, in my opinion, the 5G data management platform. Next, please. There's a story now in the papers. Very recently, Alibaba, for me, the global online lighthouse, came into the news very few days ago. Alibaba faces new threat as shopping habits change already under regulatory scrutiny. Alibaba is losing market share as Chinese consumers shift from targeted product searches to browsing and interaction. So Alibaba, challenged by Beijing's year-long clampdown on private enterprise, is facing another problem: growing competition. For more than 15 years, Alibaba was China's unaccessible e-commerce champion, a world champion. The company, founded by Jack Ma, rose to become one of the world's biggest and most valuable businesses, using hard-knuckle tactics to muscle out any challenger. As China's e-commerce industry has matured, consumers have started to embrace new ways of shopping that favor browsing and interaction over targeted product searches. A big change in the global market set by Alibaba. That trend has left Alibaba in the beginning playing catch up in some areas, and competitors have used the shift to gain a foothold in the world's largest online retail market. Alibaba remains the leading platform in online shopping, but its share of China's retail e-commerce market has fallen to projected 51 in 2021 from 78 in 2015, according to research firm eMarketing. What is the consequence? Alibaba has responded by investing more in areas such as content creation, live streaming, discounted goods. In May 2021, Chief Executive Daniel Zhang listed increased competition as one of the company's biggest obstacles of the past year, and said any profit exceeded last year would be poured back into improving its e-commerce business. Ladies and gentlemen, to start the digital transformation journey of becoming the next version of yourself, ask 3 deceptively simple questions. Who are we today? Who will we become tomorrow? How do we start making the change? Change. Remember that the biggest risk is not the action you take. It is trying fruitlessly to cling to the status quo as the world. So I was asked to open our mind towards a global sphere, because global is the competition. Internet is borderless. So there are 2 ways to do business: out of Malaysia and into Malaysia. So the global business intelligence is called now business IOB, Internet of Behavior. That is what I want to introduce to you in a little bit more detail later on. That is a powerful differentiator to improve companies' competitiveness globally. So why to go for best practice and why? Mr. Go already mentioned the why is important. What does best practice mean? It's like in football. You play the local league and win because you are the best practitioner. If you want to play regional league or ASEAN league, you have to be the best. Otherwise, you cannot win the trophy. And on the higher scale, global best practice, you need to be the winner on the global scale. So that means, in other words, if you want to grow, if you want to go on with your business on a more regional or more global scale, you need to be more competitive. Means you need to meet or be better than any best practice on your related league system, like in football. So I wanted to issue some idea now. What does the global player mindset mean? What is it in practice? So Coca-Cola is one of them. Taste the feeling. And this is an old company. I don't want to go into all the details, but they are active in all countries in the world, except in Cuba and in North Korea, by some reasons. I don't want to comment on it now. But in every country, Coca-Cola uses unique advertisement to appeal to vastly different cultures. But every ad is unmistakably for Coke. Coca-Cola has been a catalyst for social interaction and inspired innovation, close also to ESG goals. So what is the mission critical? I mentioned it as a global market SOP. Global market SOP, what does it mean? Go global, or from Malaysia, global, or others come into Malaysia as they are global players coming to Malaysia, and never ever Amazon asked us whether they're allowed to deal in Malaysia. Even Alibaba did never ask, but we have answers, no? Like Shopee and others. That is our answer. So conclusion is closer to customers. That is the setup of the future. We need to be closer with our business and manufacturing scheme to customers, closer to tech talents, closer to raw material. Coca-Cola went to Nilai because in Malaysia, they find many customers, but Nilai, they bring their syrup, but in Nilai, the best water quality. They drilled about 15 areas. They found out in Nilai, the best water quality. So they went to Nilai to make an enterprise for Malaysia. So, and therefore, short distances to their customers. We cannot afford anymore to produce goods from here into the rest of the world on long distance, half around the globe under ESG considerations, because it would accumulate a very bad carbon footprint. So that means the ultimate goal to be a global player or a regional player, you must play the end-to-end global locationing game. The locationing game are of the 4 criteria mentioned earlier on. To be anchored into 5 continents. That means you have data points. The data management reaching out into 5 continents wherever you want to do business. So in 2 years ago, I was listening on a conference here locally, and the conclusion was of the people, we are not data-centric. We are not used to make data-driven decisions. We are not so data-driven than, for example, the Americans are. So data are living and changing rapidly. They are like a living dynamic organism. So the conclusion was for each management in the world, and particularly in Malaysia, is before you make a decision, you better check the data points first. Who does do that? Many people make decisions gut feeling. So where are the data coming from? Gartner is a very prominent market study institution. They found out last year that the projected 6.4 billion digitally connected things are in use already worldwide, with millions more connected daily in addition. So how to manage? So the management of business is driven, is resulting to a solid digitalization business model, but supported by many, we call it disruptive or whatever type of technologies, and they can change anytime. That means the business model has to be solid, has to be resilient, but on the other hand, we have to acknowledge that the supportive, the enabling technologies can change anytime. So my most emphasis today is Internet of Behaviors. That is the acceleration of formerly CX, and now we can call it BX, business of behavior model.
One minute left.
Yeah, IOB is the Internet of Behaviors, was introduced by Datuk, who is the president of My IoT Association. So understanding customer behaviors is an important aspect of every business. The behavioral data will continue to evolve and open more hidden doors. Therefore, every firm must ensure the responsibility use of it. So what are the benefits? How can IOB become one of the solutions in the digital world? It can help business to resolve issues in closing more sales and keep the customers highly satisfied. It can even help to replace multiple customer service, which are time consuming for both customers and business. It can analyze the behavior of the prospects and their buying habits across different platforms. IOB can read the mind of people. So at the end, that is all. Of course, we have to have a deep feedback from data trends in the market. We can modelize our own behavioral model and act on it. So that makes that at the end of the day, that makes the entrepreneur of the future, the upper hand man, the decisive institution in the world as a small, medium enterprise or big corporate, anywhere in the world. So at the end, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts and go into these new technologies as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tan Sri Raina. Internet of behavior is definitely a word I've written down, and also your good examples of where the disruptors, the former disruptors, get disrupted, like the Alibaba case study and so on. Without further ado, I hand over to Mr. Sean Chair, who is the Executive Director of the Malaysian International Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And he was formerly the CEO for Asia Pacific of Exit Telecoms, the CFO of Ericsson Malaysia and U Mobile, and COO for Century Software. And so over to you, Mr. Sean, to share your thoughts on Quo Vadis digital transformation.
Hi, everyone. It's lunchtime, so I'll make it quick and fast. And that is what I represent a business associations, and the business is quick and fast. Time is money. So Quo Vadis, the digital transformation, how to start, where to go. In the new normal, the digital world, we are talking about the speed of light. We have to abandon our notions of this planning and blueprint where we will have study after study. And there used to be a running joke that we have in the private sector to say that if you want the government to do something, they will go, kita akan form satu komiti untuk etc. Too slow. So let me suggest something, learning from the private sector. As the previous speaker has highlighted the lofty plans of the digital transformation blueprint, there are lots and lots of objectives. But where do we start? Okay, the first thing is, in the mind of the private sector, it is, what is it in for me? Right? That's where the motivation to initiate a digital transformation. Okay, how to get started, and where do I start? Because there's so much things that needs to be done. Yeah. Okay. Let's learn some lessons. The digital transformation is still very voluntary at the moment, even though we are aware, and the government is aware, that we need to transform. But what is the impetus for us to transform? Let's learn some lessons from the vaccination program. The vaccination program was the same. It was very voluntary. It wasn't mandatory. But what the minister did was something called a sectorial pressure. Sectorial pressure. So what I want to say now is the sectorial pressure is from the government. The government will be the pressure. Yeah. And how you do it. Okay. In the private sector, there's something called the business continuity planning. Most businesses will have this. In case fire or like the 9/11 big crash into the whole entire office, everyone is gone. Where do you operate from next? So we do that as sustainability. We can operate almost immediately within 24 hours in another site or whatever it is. So do we have a business continuity plan? That is quite a common thing in the private sector. Now, the pandemic lockdowns and stuff like that have actually shown how disruptive it is for government services to shut down too. I mean, there are a lot of things. Yes, the lockdown does not mean that businesses cannot operate. It's just that the businesses cannot operate within their premises. They can still operate at home or whatever it is. But in terms of the government services, no, everything shuts down. Or some do open, but the whole thing is disrupted. That means that businesses can't continue. So therefore, let me suggest something called a public services continuity plan. Well, where you want to say, where do we start? No need to do studies and stuff like that anymore. Immediately, the government get every government agency to start and develop a public services continuity plan. And what it is, immigration department, if there's a fire, tomorrow I can have the services up. If I have a lockdown, pandemic, what do? I have IT solutions to ensure that public services still continue. And this is what I mean by the North Star. That's the guiding star to get the government officers to start thinking, how do I continue our services to the rakyat and to the businesses if you have a lockdown or you have some disaster? So from that, you will come up with what are the tools that are required, what are the digital or software that are required to be able to deliver such services. And there you are, it's all there. You don't need to hire consultants to do that. That's your North Star. And then if the government transforms, it becomes sectorial pressure. That means that it compels the private sector and the rakyat, if you want to have government services, you have to digitally transform. That means you have to get your services from the government digitally. Therefore, it will create an environment of innovation. You know, if you don't learn to be IT skilled, you'll be left behind. It becomes a compelling motivation for the rakyat and the private sectors. Forget about all this wet ink stuff that, you know, is very, very backward. Yeah. So that's the fastest way of transforming. Okay. And the final little bit, which is I would say the grand benefit of a public sector digitalization is it allows transparency. It cuts away a lot of corruptions and inefficiencies and money being spent wrongly. So priority is government digitalization. And how do you start? It is using the North Star, the guiding light of a public services continuity plan. Do we have one? That's a challenge I open to the public services to say, do you have a public services continuity plan? Thank you. Back to you, Georg.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very, very interesting. So thank you, Sean, for your thoughts. The public services continuity plan. We always think about business, but we rarely think about the public government side of things when we have these discussions. So you're absolutely right to put that also on the radar. Next is Dr. Charlene from TM Research and Development. And Dr. Charlene serves as the CEO of TM Research and Development, the wholly owned subsidiary of the TM Group. She's responsible for bringing new technology and innovation to the group and has a special focus on advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and digital payments. And she's also independent director of AXA Affin General Insurance and adjunct professor of the University Technology Malaysia and a committee member in the Faculty of Science, Material Science at the University Putra Malaysia. I think there will be a lot of interesting sharing happening in terms of case studies from the TM's perspective, but also from other companies Dr. Charlene has had experience with. So I hand over to you now to share your thoughts on the Quo Vadis digital transformation story.
Thank you, Georg, and thank you for the kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this panel session. I'm honored to be here. And yes, today I would like to talk about some of the use cases, 3 in fact, that we have done supporting TM's very own digital transformation that I hope you find interesting, and as well as some of the digital transformation initiatives that we have done for enterprises in Malaysia. I have a few slides. Yes, thank you. So very quickly, an introduction about us, and I think this is important to give context about who we are and what we do. Next slide, please. TMR&D, as pointed out by Georg, the name is should not come as a surprise. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the TM Group, a telco. Today, we are an independent subsidiary reporting to the group CEO. We were incorporated in 2001, and our strengths are in connectivity and digital services. And we take pride in ourselves for creating solutions with a global outlook. Next slide, please. We believe we can contribute to the digital or the Malaysian digital agenda in 4 areas. And we are very passionate about supporting the role of Digital Malaysia. And as Datuk Suhana pointed out, the overarching theme or objective of Digital Malaysia via the blueprint was to transform Malaysia into a digitally driven, high-income nation. And to me personally, my personal favorite, a net exporter of homegrown technologies. And what we bring to the table in 4 areas. First is a passion for developing talents and developing talents in core areas aligned to digital and IR 4.0 strategies. This is important as we move forward. Digital skills will be akin to like your PowerPoint and your Word document skills. It's something that's necessary. It's just a different degree. The second point is we by virtue of the work we do, we have increased the intellectual property assets of TM. And I think that in fact increases the IPRs of Malaysia. Yeah. So today we have more than 2,800 IPRs granted. This is from patents, copyrights, industrial designs, and so on. And we've also introduced a new class of digital assets that we call APIs, data and service APIs and microservices. And we have about more than 1,400 APIs clocked today. And through these 2 things, we are building digital services for TM's own use case. And this is enterprise-grade solutions, yeah? And whatever that works or has relevance to the external market outside of TM, we commercialize and bring to the external market via our counterpart TM1, which focuses on the enterprise and global market of Malaysia. Next slide, please. And here I would like to share 3 examples of digital transformations that we have done for TM and the corporations at large. The first one is SWIMS. We call it SWIMS. It stands for the Internet of Water solution for water companies. And it is about harnessing the power of massive IoT to modernize and improve efficiencies in the water industry. And we have a client who's already using it in one of the state water Syarikat Air. Yeah? And what we've learned from them is that there are actually 3 main pain points in the water industry that we all take for granted until there's no water, of course. And the first one is visibility of usage. And I think Tan Sri Rainier spoke about that as well in terms of having access to information and data. Because today, one of the pain points is that the water companies do not know how much water is consumed by every household on a daily or even hourly basis. What they have is right at the end of the month, it's manually read by a water meter reader. And so they only get information every month on a monthly basis. So visibility is not there. The second point to visibility is detection of abnormal use, and this is due to leakage and theft. And did you know that on average 40% of the water being pumped from the lodges and running through your homes is lost due to leakages or theft? Yeah? 40% of water is categorized as non-revenue water. And in some states, it goes up to about 70%. So this is a real huge ESG impact, if you will, losing water that has been, pumped, cleaned, and so on due to burst water pipes, leakages, and so on. And the third main pain point is manpower productivity. And this is with using digital meters, human capital can be better deployed for higher value tasks. And our client, by deploying this digital IoT and AI platform, they have managed to increase visibility of up to 300% and can now detect leakages using sensors and AI algorithms for faster detection and restoration, saving the organization millions. This is an example how digital technologies can improve the quality of water distribution to the rakyat. Now, the second example I'd like to share is a little bit closer to home of something that we're using within TM Group itself. We call it Patrol, and it is the next generation cable cut detection platform with AI capabilities, of course. So here is how we applied AI and IoT capabilities to provide early warning alerts in area where TM's infrastructure has a high risk of being destroyed. And just to give you context about this, roughly 50% of TM's network outages are actually due to third-party cable cuts, meaning construction work that is happening in areas that has not been registered or informed to the service provider, so we can give them a proper route for digging the grounds and so on. And we all know how frustrating it is to have no internet. Internet also has become like the air that you breathe. It's not really a problem until you don't have it. So it's just like any other utility, water and electricity. It is a major inconvenience to our customers when it's not there, and an operations nightmare to the telco. So what we did was using a dash cam, a simple dash cam, as you can see in the picture there, and using object recognition capabilities. The system automatically checks if there's an unregistered civil or construction activity happening on the side of the roads. And we overlay this information with, where we know where our ground cables are or our overhead cable infrastructures are. We then use AI to assess the risk, whether it's a high risk, low risk, or is it too close, and so on, and send an alert automatically to our network operations team for investigation. So we have passed the proof of function stage. We have won several awards on this for this innovative capability, and we're going to roll out nationwide very soon. The third use case, and this is an interesting one as well, and I chose these use cases. Hopefully, it finds resonance with our audience. It's something that you can kind of imagine it being applied in your everyday business, or you see it as a consumer. So this use case is a workforce management platform, and we're using it for our field operations team. And we have also, we actually built it for TM. This was some years back, but later brought it to market via our enterprise team, TM1. We have several external companies using FORCE for their very own workforce management solution. And we're learning, from each company on how they're rolling out and what are the biggest pain points they have in terms of managing their end-to-end process digitally. It is so for TM Force is about streamlining operations across one's entire service chain. Now, it seems simple enough, managing people. How difficult could it be? But imagine TM, for example, we are managing about more than 2,000 field operators team nationwide. Their job is to get your work orders or your restoration orders or the complaints about cable cuts, and then dispatch teams to fix them. So it is about routing the jobs to the right teams at the right time for the right output and, of course, the right impact to our customers. It is a bit like your online shopping experience, and most of us don't really realize the logistics involved in getting something as simple as, let's say, a hairpin delivered to you from a factory somewhere, timing the production runs, timing warehousing, timing the freight forwarding capabilities, managing customs if it's coming from abroad, local dispatch, warehousing, and so on. So many of us take it for granted and we want it instantaneously. And it's the job of companies to make it as seamless as possible. possible to our customers. And with FORCE, we have helped to digitize the entire process, and in this case, workforce management, of collecting custom installation or restoration jobs, sorting it, routing it to the right field teams, because each field team will have different competencies. You will need a field team, with different tools, for example, to repair something inside your home or outside on a pole somewhere, because then that team will need to have a ladder. And with that ladder, you need a car or a van big enough to, house that ladder and so on. And everything is automated depending on the organization's goals. So routing can be done for cost savings purposes or fastest delivery purposes, and so on and so on. So with the end-to-end digitization, we have seen improved handling time for TM especially. On average, we're doing more than 40% improved in productivity. We've managed to eliminate, and we see that also in some of our clients that have implemented digital, eliminating routine and mundane work, like dispatching of jobs manually, someone sorting in the central office, who goes where and who's on leave, and therefore, someone needs to pick up that job order and so on. And the best part is, of course, the ability to communicate with more than 2,000 of your field operators. And you don't really need to have it at 2,000. Even managing 10 people in your office with routing, instructions, or managing your the building maintenance, for example. You need to send people here and there to say check the fan, check the light, aircon, and so on. So it is about communicating with your people with digital. Everything can be done on the fly, and escalation of urgent works can be done, very easily. So next slide. So that's really in a nutshell, the 3 examples that we have done, both for TM, one for TM, external market, and then of course, how that we have done for TM and then brought it to the external market. So my final slide, and this is in conclusion. I believe for Malaysia to remain relevant and competitive, especially to attract foreign direct investments, we must always have something unique to offer the world. And to do that, we must continue to create. We must continue to invest in developing talents. And then we must, of course, own the intellectual property or the IPs. We then should put all of this together to create unique solutions or platforms to make life and business easier for a better Malaysia. And to enable all these to happen at scale, and the operating word here is scale, we must shift our mindsets from being a nation of just consumers to becoming a nation of producers. With that, thank you, Georg. I hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salim. And speaking for everyone, I think these were really, really interesting use cases or examples. SWIM's petrol force. I will always remember that there's 40% of loss in the whole water system, which is unbelievable. If you had asked me, I wouldn't have guessed it. So I hand over to Datuk Henry Go now to continue the discussion. He's the co-founder and COO of Macro Kiosk and responsible for the efficiency of the organization's business operations and policies as well as procedures, and make sure that the operational goals are not only effectively communicated but also executed on. He holds an MBA from the University of Boston and actively engages as a mentor in various local as well as regional startups, which include Founder Institute, MED, and the Magic Accelerator program. And that earned him not only Ernst & Young's Emerging Entrepreneurs Award, but also a spot on this amazing panel here. So over to you, and please present your case on how we can do this digital transformation.
Right, thanks, Josh, and of course, good morning to everyone, to fellow panelists, and as well as all the attendees. Obviously, thank you to KSI as well for inviting me again for this panel. Really good to share some thoughts, and I think fellow panelists before me have also shared a great deal about digitalization and of course the fourth industrial revolution and things like that. But just let me share a little bit about Macrocare's perspective of what we have gone through in terms of digitalization. So Macrocare, we are a company that helps company digitalize. So in the sense of there are companies that come and use our platforms, be it communication, payments, customer relationship platforms, and things like that, where we then use these platforms to digitalize the operations, which will allow them to then acquire, grow, and retain customers. So in a nutshell, we have platforms that help companies to go digital. But however, of course, when we started, we are so focused in our business of helping companies to digitalize. We ourselves are not digitalized. So I mean, that would be the starting point of us. Because I think why this is relevant is because that we are more focused in driving business than actually our back-end operations, where then our back-end operations became very full of paper. We rented a warehouse to store our data because there's also a requirement in Malaysia where you need to store at least 7 years of statutory data and stuff like that. So all these things piles up. I think obviously over time we have digitalized even our back office, and today a lot of our processes are automated. We obviously have also as due to the COVID, all of us are working from home. It gives us a very good perspective to test out our digitalization readiness. So in the sense that we're able to operate paperlessly, make approvals, make payments and stuff like that, and continue operation because of the whole entire operation. So what I would say is that the relevance is that even at this point in time, a lot of companies that we talk to, they have always been emphasizing on driving sales and marketing and getting more businesses, whereas things on the back end, especially on the operational efficiency and things like that, they have always been put to the back burner. Especially so during the COVID times, there are some that is they lost money or at the tipping point of survivability. When you talk to them, digitalization, it seems to be something not something they want to hear at all. But however, obviously digitalization is a long journey. I mean, it's not something that it's just talking about it like today or yesterday, but rather like Tan Sri Ryan was saying, it starts all the way from 1990s itself, where the changes and adoption of digitalization starts from then. It could be as simple as things like adopting computers, putting computers in your offices is already an act of digitalization even at that time. So what it means is that this is a big obstacle that we face, not just ourselves, where we started off being more focused on business, and we see that currently, even now, there are a lot more businesses they are focusing on actually trying to drive business rather than digitalizing their back end itself. And this is a missed opportunity, I would say. And how do we want to emphasize on driving more digitalization on the back end of it? So there are a lot of companies, I mean, especially during these COVID times, there are a lot of companies putting themselves on e-commerce, trying to sell the products online. But you see, that is not a very good intention of digitalization. I mean, that is just because I want to survive, I want to sell something, and I put it on e-commerce. But I think the whole digitalization framework for companies go beyond just having your product selling on the digital world itself. It could be even from things like fully paperless. That's the first important thing. Making sure your operations continue to run even you are offsite, whether it's in a BCP environment or whether you are now because you are forced to work from home. I think this is a key idea, and this is equally very important, especially coming from the point of manufacturing. Smart manufacturing is the key going forward, where we plug ourselves into the global supply chain. So the technology that we need to implement on our businesses is not just about the ability to function digitally or paperlessly, but rather that is compatible with the world standards and compatible with other people in the supply chain to ensure we are very efficient in terms of our whole entire supply chain to supply something to the world, and we are always part and parcel of the whole entire supply chain through digital technology itself. So I mean, obviously this is a big thing, but as I supposed to share some thoughts and some examples, I mean, let me share with you two very, very simple example of what we face, for example. So one of the key digitalization barrier, I would say, in Malaysia and also a lot of other progressing countries is what we call human resource costs. In Malaysia, human resource is actually quite cheap. If you look at it, especially when we are getting foreign workers to join us. So this becomes a problem because, you know, one of the example I have is that not many years ago, we spoke to a mall operator. So mall operator, they do have parkings and car parks and things like that. So our idea is to then utilizing our platform to help them to digitalize their parking systems, digitalize the way they collect payments and for the parking, for example. But to them, they were saying that is, you know, with the salary that I'm paying for someone to collect money at the booth, probably, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years that I can spend paying that guy that instead of paying for your technology, right? So that became a big problem on digitalization. So everyone try to then emphasize or maximize the human resource rather than trying to use technology to improve it. That's the first part, right? Obviously now then we can see a lot of parking is going online now, going to digital, and the efficiency that they can get out of it, and they are more economical, and in the sense it shows that it starts to become more productive having a digital parking system rather than actually appointing someone, for example, because that now again, during COVID times, there are situations where, you know, there are no parking attendants, nobody collecting money from you, and then your whole parking got to close down, rather than if it's digitalized, for example. So this is one of the example of it. The other companies that we also talked to is that also quite a number of years ago, what we call we want to digitalize the cinema sales tickets, for example. So there's a cinema operator that we talked to. They try to digitalize their selling of tickets, managing their hall, and even, you know, managing the seats and food and stuff like that. So we talked to them, we provide the idea and things like that. However, they came back and said that no, I think, you know, we like to see people lining up at our cinemas because with more people lining up, we were able to then attract other people to come as well. I don't know what thought is that. I don't know why they think that way, but generally the key point is then now their competitors went online, selling tickets online first, and they gained the upper hand out of a sudden because they're able to sell tickets online. They're able to sell more ancillary income, like for example, popcorns and stuff like that online and things like that. So it then overtook them because of this whole digitalization process, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that, of course, digitalization is not just for the manufacturers or the big companies, but also could be just as simple as a mall operator, or it could be just a parking operator, or even just a cinema operator. If they can look at this digitalization, it would definitely help them in terms of operational continuity and obviously cost as well. So I would really think in the sense that really the key barrier now would be one of the area would be human costs. So if we continue to rely on foreign workers bringing it at very low rates, our digitalization roadmap would be affected in that sense, because there are people who definitely go cost first. We also see that one of the major problems that we face even ourselves is to able to hire talent to help people to digitalize. I think there's also a talent shortfall that is really required. Not just us, but also, of course, companies itself, because how do they actually retrain their staff to able to embrace digitalization without actually having to retrench anyone of them. So a lot of times business owners are also very responsible. They do not want to retrench or let people go because simply they have contributed in their company for a while. But nevertheless, it's that also because of digitalization need in the sense that they have to retrain them and things like that. So I think that's also a barrier in terms of human knowledge itself. So I mean, that's what I would really want to talk about. I mean, generally, digitalization is a really known fact that it's going to bring you operational efficiency, even bring you in terms of not only just reduce costs, but increase efficiency in terms of your goods produced. It's not just about digitalization is not just about small companies or even big companies. I think digitalization works for all companies. I think everyone needs to look at how we digitalize it. And obviously, one key important thing, decision makers are very important. So any digitalization effort should come from the top, all the way from the directors down. It's not an initiative by the IT manager at your company. I think it's a complete initiative. I think this is a key part that business owners need to understand to have this implemented, because there are a lot of people, even politically inside a company, who would think that will I have my job gone? I'm not relevant anymore because I'm going to implement digitalization. And as such, they need to have that kind of real power, or political power, we want to put it that way, between the organization from the top to push it down. In respect to give the team the security that your job's not going to go, but you're going to improve your working environment and things like that. Then, of course, definitely, we hope that the government will reach out more to the private companies to understand our needs, understand their needs as well, to see how we can play a role in helping the companies, or helping the government's agenda, or the country's agenda of digitalization. So it's really a joint effort by the government, and of course a joint effort with the private sectors, and opening up, having more dialogues with the associations, having more dialogues with digital companies in Malaysia. I think that's very important for us to grow this agenda together. So yeah, thanks. Really, that's about it, George. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dato Henry, for your thoughts and industry experience on with the practical example of the disruption, like in the parking industry, where you have addressed the question of what gets replaced by technology, and how do we still how can we still have a high demand for talent. So it's kind of quite a complex problem to solve. Now, the last presenter of our panel is Ms. Rafeeza, who is now bringing to the table the finance aspect of everything. She was appointed Cradle Group's CEO last year in June, and she has over 26 years of experience in finance, audit, investment, strategy, and business developments in various industries: banking, energy, plantations, property, healthcare, automotive, industrial, media, and consumer goods. So pretty much everything. And she was also the head of group innovation and business performance at Sime Darby in the past, where she also was involved in to drive innovation and entrepreneurship across a various portfolio of companies. She holds a bachelor degree in science from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and she holds a postgraduate diploma in strategy and innovation from the Said Business School of the University of Oxford. So I hand over now to Ms. Rafeeza to share her thoughts about Quo Vadis digital transformation.
Thank you very much, George. I know it's lunchtime, so I'll try to make it short and sweet. What I'm going to do next, if you don't mind, I'm going to share. Can you see my screen now? Instead of talking about financing models, I just want to talk about what does digital transformation, the impact to the startup ecosystem. Okay, just to give you a little bit of a background, Cradle Fund, we are under Ministry of Finance. We report to the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. Been around since 2003. We provide grant and also early stage investment, seed investment in startups. We have impacted more than 1,000 startups. Some of our leading startups, Grab, we provide 2 grants to My Taxi, and Avana, Droppy, FlexiRoam, name it. Almost 1 out of 3 startups in Malaysia, we have provided grant, not just grant, but value-added services, coaching, mentoring, etc. And so I just want to share with you, and first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. I'm very honored to be on the same panel with some of our esteemed guests. So as you know, the pandemic have a major impact to our lives, to the economy. As you can see, a lot of economy was severely affected. The GDP, as you can see, red, it's 70%. A lot of countries are in recession. But I always believe in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. So we heard a lot of what digitalization means to a lot of organization, a lot of pivoting, a lot of disruption. But I will share you some slides later on that, as you can see, if you can, bring yourself to what happened last year, sometime in March, major disruption in our life, but the ones that have sort of, softened the impact are the startups, because they are able to be agile and they are effectively problem solvers. That's the reason why they're startups, okay? And what we saw in Southeast Asia, that there has been a surge of investment in startups. They are expecting, investment in startups to pass in Southeast Asia to pass 20 billion in 2021, and that's 250% more than the investment that were attracted in 20. So what does that mean? Digitalization, disruption, that brings to the startups world, especially in Southeast Asia. And what's interesting is that, we have had a record year in the year 2021 with respect to the birth of unicorns. And as you know, unicorns are, startups that are valued more than 1 billion US. We had our first unicorn, Malaysian unicorn, about, slightly more than a month ago, Kasem. It took them 6 years to become a unicorn. And what's more interesting, if I can go back to the earlier, and this is from Deal Street Asia, is that when they look at startups in Southeast Asia alone, I'm not talking about the world, those that are valued more than 100 million valuations, currently, there's more than 100 plus of that on the list that will be reaching unicorn status soon. Imagine this year we created 19 startups in Southeast Asia, and there's going to be 100 of them becoming startups, soon, according to Deal Street Asia recently. So what does it mean to Malaysia? Okay, this is from the digital blueprint. We've got the right recipe to become the digital economy. And what does it mean to this Malaysia? So as you can see, Malaysia is right in the center of ASEAN. We've got a 33.5 million population. We've got a young population. And as you can see from the previous slides, sorry, I'm like going back and forth of my slides. We are 80% Malaysians are active on social media. We've got 66% of internet users, in mobile banking. We've got top 5 social media penetration. We've got 144 e-payment transactions per capita. We've got, all the right ingredients for us to really be a digital economy. And that's, in a way, it's really, really good news for the Malaysian startups. I just got this, this morning, someone sent to me, and it says there, investors see unpolished gems in Malaysian startup ecosystem. So i.e., there's a lot of new money coming in, angel investors, VC. I just came back from Dubai Expo, where we hosted, 17 startups in UAE, and we promoted the Malaysian startup ecosystem. A lot of interest from the global on Malaysian startups, because they see Malaysian startups as still, good value for money compared to the Indonesian startups. And they see that, Malaysian has got a right test bed for them to, try to start anything new, especially for them to try to start to go into ASEAN. Okay, and as you know, as I mentioned earlier, we start Cradle Fund. We are under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, and I just want to share with you some of the things which our minister has recently announced, and this is aligned to the digital economy blueprint as presented by the earlier panel, that there's a 5,000 targets of new startups by 2025, even though in the digital economy says, 5 startups by 2030, but our minister is very, very bullish. And in fact, he has, target 5 unicorn, either Malaysian or homegrown, to be created by 2025. He's very, very bullish. And then he's also recently announced we are in the process of coming up, and this is in relation to the digital blueprint that was issued in February. So MOSTI has then arising from that is in the process of getting approval of our own Malaysian startup ecosystem blueprint 2021 and 2030, and we expect to launch that by 2030. So he has also announced that, and hence I can share with you. So these are some of the things, from, what digitalization impacts the startup ecosystem. So what is our aspiration, with respect to where we want to be? Currently we are ranked 47 at the Global Startup Ecosystem 2020 report by Startup Genome. Our aspiration, we want to be top 20 by 2030. We want to create 5,000 new startups by 2025. And produce 5 unicorns by 2025. Just to give you a little bit of a background, Cradle was set up in 2003, and I think that's when the sort of when Cradle was first start. Majority of the people don't even know what is startup at that time, and from 2003 and 18 years later, at the moment. We, based on various documentation, we believe that there are currently around 3,000 to 3,700 startups in Malaysia. So how do we create 5,000 new startups in 4 years? So we can't do the same thing like what we did, for the last 18 years. So, and this is what I just want to share with you, what Cradle has got in mind in supporting MOSTI to realize those targets that was provided by the digital blueprint, that commitment to the startup economy, to the startup ecosystem. Malaysian startup ecosystem roadmap, as I mentioned, will be launched before end of the year. And Cradle Fund has been, mandated by the government to be the central agency for the implementation. And then one of the intervention, there's 16 interventions in the ecosystem roadmap. One of the key is for MOSTI to also develop a startup ecosystem platform by the end of November 2021, and that will also be powered by Cradle Fund. So we're actually working very, very hard at the moment to come up with the startup ecosystem. According to the IMD Global Innovation Index, we're, out of 63 ranked economies, we're number 54 with respect to creation of new startups. We want to bring that up to top 20. That's the only reason for us to churn these 5,000 startups. We have to do it a different way, game-changing way, and the best way is to go digital. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rafisa. Maybe while we still have you, there was one question asked which specifically is also perfect for you, which is, why are Malaysian startup investors in general more risk adverse compared to Singaporean startup investors? I mean, first of all, is that true or not? And if so, why?
Yes, I came from SIMDABI, and one of the things that we were trying to do is to get, SIMDABI to partner with startups, not just invest in startups, even partner with startups, and one of the things that we're doing at the moment at Cradle is to approach as many corporate, corporate to become corporate investors, looking at getting more angel investors. Cradle is the accreditation agency that gives accreditation to angel investors for them to get a tax incentive. Yes, one of the reasons is because I've been on that side of the, of the fence, is because we don't have the data. We don't have startups are very reluctant to share their data, rightfully so. Unlike Singapore and other more developed countries, they have this platform that provides all the information. And we're also trying to educate, I wouldn't call it educate, but create awareness to the startups. It is very important for them to be a little bit more transparent in order for them to attract investors. And we're also working with the startups very closely on how to make them to become more investable. As you can see, a lot of the startups, they're very good, startup founders, early stage, they're very good at technology, but they need a lot of guidance with respect to sell themselves. So we coach them for them to be investable, for them to be attractive, to the VCs as well. And because we provide grants to them, we spend 2 years nurturing them for them to become leading startups. So, and one of the mandate that was just recently by the government is for us to be able to convert our grants into equities. Yeah. So that's provide a validation, because we spend 2 years, so 2 years of due diligence. If we find something that's attractive, we'll convert that into equity, and hopefully that attracts other investments. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions for our panelists from anyone? I'm looking at the chat. There are none at the moment. Any other? Is there anything else the panelists would like to add? I mean, we are literally 2 minutes over time now. So if you have anything, a few last words to say, please limit yourself to 1 minute. Very, very sorry, but we're a bit over time. Anyone else wants to have some last thought?
Yes, Georg, just a last bit about anything which is to plan forward to have successful execution requires only just 2 things. One is meritocracy. The meritocracy to ensure that we really have the competent people to execute. And the second part is governance. If you have governance, you prevent the competent from becoming incompetent. That's the only 2 things. Otherwise,
thank you. Thank you. We got one other question. How can we build an ecosystem for early stage companies that works for Malaysian startups? Maybe that's a question for Datuk, Dr. Suhana, maybe to reiterate from your presentation what the key topic for is. How can we build this ecosystem?
I think, Shmil, this is kind of for Rafiza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we have done is that, an ecosystem, all the stakeholders needs to be there. It's not just for the startups, so i.e. governments, research institute, universities. So that's what Cradle is working at the moment under the ambit of MOSTI, and it's been mandated by the government, is to how, because at the moment, if you Google startups, information is fragmented, there's no data. So how can policymakers make decisions when there's no data? At the moment, Cradle, we measure impact. So i.e. we know, or for all the grants, over 250 million grants that we've provided so far, we've created, nearly 4 billion ringgit to the GDP economy. We've created 85,000 jobs. We have that, but we don't have that for the government. So how do we sell Malaysia's startup ecosystem to the investors, if there's no data? So coming up with a platform, we believe that's going to be a game changer. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone from the panel before we wrap up?
I would just like to thank everyone. I mean, it's great to see Malaysia finally talking about, bringing digital to the forefront, talking about investments in this space, building new technologies and bring it to market. And I'll end this with a quote from my favorite poet, Victor Hugo. And it says, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." And I'm excited, to be on this panel. Thank you, Georg.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaleen. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, can I have just
a
few words? Okay, thank you for everybody. I think I take note of what Mr. Sean just highlighted, but I just want to iterate that in the blueprint we say about public, private partnership.
quite sure the lines.
Partnership. I think now the government has moved. Government have done quite a lot to provide the better services and all that. So I think it is a partnership. I think even the private sector have to do their part, and the government have to do their part. And it is an agile in a dynamic environment that everybody.
We're very sorry, Datuk Dr. Suhana.
So we need to help each
we
other
lose you
because
again. The line is not very good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I just said it is everybody's role to drive the digital agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anything else, Dr. Henry and Tan Sri Raina?
I think it's all right. I think everyone is well and set. So I think there's something that let's work on digital together. And I think that a word to say is that let's work together if it's for Malaysia, let's work all together as Malaysians to get it done, because especially there are a lot of cases, as we'll see, is that there are a lot of times we rely on outside influencers, or we would like to rather work with outside companies. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but I think there are also a lot of opportunities within Malaysia we should harness first as well. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What I would like to address, to reiterate what I mentioned before already, whatever we want to do, whatever we want to achieve in Malaysia, we need to be sure that it's competitive. So the question is now, what does it mean? It means very clearly, we need to benchmark ourselves what we do and what we want to achieve. So what does it mean to achieve to be a digital economy in 2030? Are we then competitive, yes or no? We don't know. So it means on a regular basis, on a frequent basis, year by year, or maybe on a frequent basis, we need to do a benchmarking exercise. So if you want to be a local player only Malaysia, you don't need to. We don't need to go out Malaysia, but we are in ASEAN fighting for competitiveness with a number of nations, 650 million people. They are waiting for better days. So the minimum benchmark exercise for Malaysia must be a regular benchmarking to the rest of the ASEAN countries. If that is in place, the next step has to be done. Do we want to be more than ASEAN? That's a big achievement idea. If you want to be more, in those days, once we started the multimedia supercore there, we wanted more. So there was an international advisory panel in 1999. So I can remember. So we don't have that here. So if the embracement of the whole desire of Malaysia is going to beyond ASEAN, be more competitive than any ASEAN nation, we have to do a benchmark exercise beyond. So that is a very powerful tool and exercise which has to go along the whole nation, industry, government, whatever kind of economic factor is being touched. We have to do that, in my opinion. In my opinion, we need to be globally competitive. And the ranking is not local, not regional, but global. All right?
On this high, there's nothing else to say than to KSI, thank you for having us. And you heard Tan Sri Raina, we need to have regular check-ins. So see you at the 3rd Malaysia Digital Economic Summit 2022, hopefully in person.